Let's be honest. When it comes to mental health, men are often expected to be strong, silent, and self contained. We grow up hearing things like, man up, don't cry, handle it, you can take it. And somewhere along the way, that becomes the script in which we live by. But the truth is, men struggle too. Men feel deeply. Men feel overwhelmed. Men need support just as much as anyone. Unfortunately, they're just not always given permission to ask for it. Today, I want to talk about men's mental health, not from a point of shame, but from a place of understanding. And I want to talk about how the people around us, our friends, our partners, our families, can show up in a way that actually helps and doesn't add pressure. The unspoken rules that we as men grew up with: don't cry, handle it yourself, be strong, don't show weakness, provide, protect, perform. These are the messages that men are taught at a very early age. Now, anytime someone is asking me to join a conversation about men, I always take it back to the beginning because I believe that you cannot fully grasp the scope of what is happening until you go back to the beginning. And I don't like to tackle problems from the middle, because when you tackle problems from the middle, you are very rarely getting to the crux and the core of it, and you are putting a band-aid on it, if you will. And so I always go back to those foundational moments with men where we are told things like being soft is wrong, and that having tender emotions is feminine, and understanding feelings and all of these things are not important. These are the things in which men are taught growing up, right? And the expression becomes for most men that you go and do something physical. And so there's no real wonder to me why it is that domestic violence happens in all relationships, male on male relationships, which there are statistics out there that will corroborate that it is more likely to happen in a same-sex male couple. And what I have learned, being a person who is a same-sex dater and romancer and all those things, is that at the core, a lot of us were brought up the exact same way, right? It sounds a little bit different. The verbiage may have changed, but it's the same thing. Boys don't wear pink, boys don't wear purple. Those are girl colors. Cooking is for women. So it's no real wonder why there are a lot of men who don't cook or cook survival meals, right? It is no wonder, because navigating the world in an emotional way, an emotionally intelligent way, wasn't something that we were taught. Now, that doesn't mean that there aren't those of us who innately understand, because there are. There are some of us who are just very energetic, very spiritual beings, and we catch on very, very quickly, and we nurture that and we grow that as we move forward. I would say that that is the few and not the many, in my experience. But there's this idea: don't show weakness. As a man, you don't show weakness. What is not showing weakness? Because here's the thing: we are all innately human. And the things that you consider weakness, right, are typically things that you tell people to avoid and to hide. And I don't find strength nor power in hiding. And I would venture to say that most men don't. I never back down from a fight. I'm sure you don't. I'm always up for a challenge. I'm sure you are. I'm always going to conquer. I'm sure you'll try. That is the mentality that has plagued a lot of men. And so then we wonder why it is that we get in these relationships. You're like, my God, he just can't read a room. He cannot read a room. Why can't he read the room? Well, he wasn't taught how to read the room. He was actually told that reading the room wasn't important. That was for women to do. This message is about how men express emotion, or don't, should I say. This is about how that manifests into actions and manifests into this reality that is this culturally insensitive thing, and this notion that men don't care and that men don't feel and all of these things. And as I said before, men do feel, and they feel very deeply. Let's talk about expectations, right? Emotional isolation, vulnerability, pressure to appear fine, difficulty asking for help. Does any of that sound familiar? A lot of those core points we talked about in an episode, 2 episodes ago, as it related to being overwhelmed, just being overwhelmed with life, realizing that you have prioritized so many other things, and yet you haven't taken the moments for yourself to feel and know that you have extreme value and that your life has meaning, because you have to appear fine. That shows up in both of the episodes that we just discussed earlier on. It is in the being overwhelmed with things. It is also in the strong friend and the strong family member of it all. As a person who has been the strong family member, as a person who has been overwhelmed, and as a person that is a man, all of these things are going to resonate very, very deeply with me, because I can't help but experience them. I can't help but experience them. And so we got to talk about why it is that men struggle, and they struggle with things, but they won't talk about it. Without describing harmful behaviors, right? I want to talk about feeling overwhelmed, feeling like a failure, feeling disconnected, feeling the pressure to be everything for everyone, feeling unseen, unheard, feeling like you can't fall apart. We have to normalize and create space for men to express all of those things. And those are all the things that we talked about in the previous episode. So this is segmenting it right into the men of it all that are in our lives. Now, some of you will say, it is not my responsibility as a woman, as a they, them, as a partner of. I've done my work. I have arrived, and therefore I don't have to help nobody else get to the destination. I won't provide a route. I won't provide a map. I won't even give them the address, because they should do it on their own. The issue with that is that, like I've said before, you can only know what you know, and you can only do based on what you know. Telling somebody that they should be something and that they could be something without telling them how really is empty and fruitless. And so, a lot of times, again, we are putting expectations on men that, let's talk about fairness, that are unfair. And they're unfair because you don't have the language, you don't have the lived experience, you don't have the example to do what is being asked of you. And so, in a world where you already have so much and you're already restricted in so many ways, you already have self-doubt, you already have self-judgment, and then if you do not check the box, if you do not check the box, that is going to deem you unworthy. You're going to be a failure. Nobody's going to deem you a real man. Your manhood is going to be in question, and all the things that happen today in society. You are zesty and you are sassy. Oh my God, that is some of the most harmful, easy speak that I've heard as of late, is calling a man who is emotionally in tuned sassy. A man who is caring and thoughtful, corny, zesty, thirsty. All of these things when a man tries to give emotions. It's the craziest thing, right? We want somebody to be emotionally intelligent, but not so much so that it appears that you really, really want to be with me. I want you to be with me enough, but not too much, because how it's going to look. I want you to articulate yourself well, but if you do it too well, You might be a part of the alphabet mafia, and there's something wrong with that. Because listen here, you giving too much, you giving more than a woman would. That's too much explanation for a man, right? I want my man to be thoughtful and get flowers and all of these things or whatever. What? Why does that man know about flowers? What he know about that stuff? You better check. It's all of these things that happen with men these days, and it's no wonder that emotional intelligence isn't growing. It's not. Emotional availability is not growing. As a matter of fact, what society is doing right now in popular social culture is driving people further into a complete obsolescence of feelings. Men that are going to be devoid of any type of depth when it comes to feeling and regulating emotions. I always talk about the emotional quotient. The emotional quotient. You've heard of the intelligence quotient, the IQ. You take the score, it tells you how smart you are. Same thing with the EQ. It tells you how emotionally intelligent you are, how apt you are to go into a situation and read the room, as I talked about earlier. If a man cannot articulate, if a man cannot visibly, right, discern the difference between anger, frustration, confusion, sadness, if he cannot put into action, you know, in motion, what that looks like for himself, what makes you think he's going to recognize it in you? Because your gesture of hand on chin and giving a sideways look could be confusion. You could be angry. You could be fed up. You could be any number of things, sad, daydreaming, thinking of a master plan, anything you want, baby, ask your man. You could be doing a number of things, but to a man who cannot decipher what that would even be for himself, what makes you think he's going to look across the aisle, across the room at you, and be able to do it for you? And then, even more so, adding insult to injury is you cuss him out. You call him every name in the book. You tell him he ain't shit. You tell him he don't know how to be a man. You tell him he hates women. All of these things are true. I want us all to sit with this for a moment. I want us all to sit with it because this is very true. And that's why I said things happen. These things happen and they create emotional isolation. It causes men to retreat. It's like, listen, if I wanted to give it to you, I'm not going to do it anymore. And then the real fear of vulnerability creeps in because I have said for a long time, and I have been torn to smithereens on the internet for saying this. And I said, men are very delicate creatures when it comes to feelings. Because if a man is not used to giving you those tender and softer bits, when he does decide to give it to somebody and he says, you know what, I'm gonna open up and go for it, and you shut him down, he's gonna remember that forever. He's gonna remember that forever. He's gonna remember the first person that broke his heart. And every person, hopefully not until the end of time, but every person is going to hear about it and they are going to have to pay for it in some way, shape, or form. Now, you ask me, is that fair? I don't believe so. I tell every man that I encounter, I'm not paying for something that somebody else did. Your experience with that person was your experience with that person. But that is me setting the groundwork and creating boundaries in the situation because there's no way I know what that person's experience is. I don't know their background. I don't even know them, don't want to know them from the sounds of it. And you shouldn't have known them either. But I'm not going to allow you to carry that here. And I'm not going to let you carry it any further. So if you came here for growth and you came here because you wanted to build something new and you wanted to get to that next phase in your life, let's do it. Because as Craig the Writer Stewart says, relationships are the place that people go to learn and grow. And I definitely believe that. Every person you encounter in life, every person, you encounter them for a reason. And they are to help you go through something or to something, right? They're helping you grow through something or to something. Either way, that's what's happening. And so in the relationship realm of it, we oftentimes will say, he wasn't that kind of man when he was with me. He wasn't that kind of man with me. How did she or how did they get the better man? That's not fair. But relationships really are a learning space. And by golly, some of us are just not good teachers. Some of us are not good teachers. We don't even know how to love ourselves, some of us. And I'm talking about everybody. Some of us don't even know how to love each other. We don't know how to love the person next to us. We barely know how to love our kids. But we do it because we're told to. And the threat of CPS knocking at the door, right, is very motivating. But again, the emotional isolation happens because what do I do with this? I have these feelings. I don't know what to do with them. The fear of vulnerability. If I tell somebody, they're going to misuse it. They're going to weaponize it. I'm going to be called names. I'm going to be considered less than a man. Fear of vulnerability. The pressure to appear fine. Men are not supposed to cry. Men are not supposed to have that. You're the man. You're supposed to be able to deal with it. Listen, what movie was that? I want to say was it Waiting to Exhale? I think it was Waiting to Exhale. And in one of the scenes, she said one of the ladies said something about the man crying, and she said, "You show me a man that ain't crying, and I'll show you a man that's hitting on somebody." I can't remember the movie, but that always stuck with me because I was like, "That's it, that's it." And the reason why that is it is because if you don't know what to do with your emotions, right, as a man, and if you were only taught that the way that you get through them is to do something physical, go outside in the yard, call up your friends and go play a sport, it is physical. Go do something physical, something that'll make you stronger, make you more of a man. And so that's what you do. And every time you have an emotional stimulus, you do something physical. Now, this is not to say that I'm condoning violence of any kind or assault of any kind. It's not. But we do have to acknowledge when there's a cause and there's an effect. So when men reach frustration, when they reach sadness, when they reach anger, and you say that there is no other outlet than to get physical, well, um, as you grow older, right? There's only so many sports you can play, so many people you can call in the moment. And so the next thing is it comes out as aggression and it comes out in a physical way. I've seen it. I've seen it. I'm a product of being in a home where that was a thing that happened all the while that I was growing up. That happened. And I hated seeing it. I hated seeing it. But I noticed like anytime my stepfather was frustrated, he was tired, people at work got on his nerves, he'd flip the refrigerator over, he'd knock the TV over, he'd punch a hole in the wall, right? And I would be like, this is crazy. And then when it turned physical in that sense, not towards, well, listen, that's a different conversation for a different episode. But then it gets there because that is what we teach our men to do. And when you have decades of bad ideology and bad pathology when it comes to emotional regulation, this is what you end up with. And so when a man isolates emotionally and shuts down, as we call it in conversation, that honestly is the preferred thing to the other option because it's going to happen one or two ways. When a man is met with an emotion that he can't handle, and he's not equipped to ask for it and he's not equipped to articulate what it is with words and isn't given the space to express it with understanding and not judgment, he's either going to completely retreat because he's got a fear of probably going to jail or really hurting and harming somebody, which is considerate and that's great. Whatever the deterrent is, that's fine. Or it's going to be to get physical in some way. It could be with you, it could be with friends, it could be random strangers. How many times have you seen in the news that people are just going off the handles? They're just going off the handles on people, and you're like, oh my God, like, why would he do that? Yeah. Now, I don't mean to be graphic and I don't mean to paint this picture that all men are abusive in that way. What I'm really trying to get to the core of is that telling somebody to go put their hands on something or to make busy with their hands instead of sifting through emotions is part of the problem. It is part of the problem. So, these are often the things, like I said, that contribute to how men are expected to do things and the spaces in which men are allowed to express themselves, if you will. And so going back to what I said, feeling overwhelmed, feeling like a failure, feeling disconnected, all of those things men feel. However, there's not always a language that you can put it into that says, let me tell you why I'm feeling overwhelmed. Work was too much today. I just feel like I'm not getting anywhere at work and I don't know what to do about it. Right now, there are men that do very well at this. So don't think I'm saying that. I'm a man too. So I'm not immune to this. I'll say that a million times. I'm still a man. I'm not immune to any of this. I just happen to be a man that has done the work and continues to do it. Right. But these things are the underlying struggles that happen inside of men and they just don't say it out loud. Some can't say it out loud, right? And you have to create the space for it. You have to create the space for it. So you're probably wondering, Michael, okay, all right. You said some really good stuff here. You said some really deep stuff here. And so I know I thought it wasn't my responsibility, right? If you're on the other side of it, if you're a man who is in your chest right now, like, man, he's talking about me. Er, you're proving my point. You're proving my point. And it's not even really my point. It's just a point that I'm bringing to the surface so that we can get better as a collective. But this is how friends and family can show up and support men, right? Check in with your men before something reaches a catastrophic level. Check in before there's a crisis. Oftentimes we wait for men to get in trouble with the law before we want to be nurturing. We're like, oh my God. We wait until men get to rock bottom. Oh, they done lost their job, they lost the house. Now I want to, now he needs a hug. Now he needs that, right? Ask the questions intentionally to the men in your life. How are you doing? The ones that come home from work every day and they follow a system and they seem like this is the norm for them. Ask them. Like I said before, we are all human beings and we have things that come up in us. We have them. And sometimes we just need somebody to be there to say, I got you. I'm here. Even if you don't have all of the language, this isn't about you having all the answers. It's not about you having all the answers. It's about you being willing to participate with somebody that you love and that you care for, right? Don't wait for somebody to hit rock bottom. Don't wait until everything blows up to then say, oh, well, you need a hug. Well, a hug is definitely not going to fix it now. It is definitely not going to fix it. Don't wait until somebody is 40 or 50 years old and then address the concern that you've noticed from a very early onset. Don't make excuses. Don't make excuses. That happens too. It happens too. Mothers, grandmothers, aunties, women that want to believe in a well, listen, it ain't just women. Okay, well, because the people who want to believe in some altered reality. I want to believe that he is this person when he really showing you who he was, right? He's really been showing you, but for some reason those rose-colored glasses got you twisted. Don't wait until the person has been exhibiting bad behavior for years to then be like, did you know that you were rude, abrupt, and really down, low, gutter snipish? You know, you are very dismissive of people. You are very rude, and you come off very uncaring. Don't wait until somebody has gotten to their 40s and 50s to say that. By the time they've gotten there, they're like, well, nobody's ever said anything. I just really think that, you people are sensitive. That's how we get those kind of men. They'd be like, I just think you sensitive. Ain't never been a problem for nobody else. And then what you gonna say? Read the room. And what am I gonna tell you? If you can't read yourself, right? If you can't read yourself, you surely can't read a room. If you can't regulate what's going on in here, you certainly can't regulate what's going on out here. Right? So check in without waiting for the crisis to happen. Really. Even if somebody seems fine and the man seems like he's coming in and he's okay, check in with him. Ask him some really, really pointed questions, some real questions, not just, hey, you good? You all right? You good, ain't you? Because we definitely will do that. Oh, we will definitely do that. You good, ain't you? You all right? Oh, okay. And it's really empty. We have no real like intention behind it. We don't want to hear nothing. We're like, okay, I checked the box off. Don't do that. Because I guarantee, just as something at work frustrated you and you called a friend, you phoned a friend and said, listen, friend, let me tell you what happened to me today. So and so at the office came in here and I wanted to knock that clean off. And you get it out, and your friends say, uh-huh, see, listen here, I knew she was a problem because when she worked over there at that one job, they gave her a piece of promotion. And y'all get to go through the range of emotions. Y'all know, some of y'all laughing right now because you just got off the phone with somebody, a good girlfriend or good Judy, and you guys had the same conversation. Men don't have those same spaces, unfortunately, and men don't have those same relationships with other men. Now, some of you are hard headed and you're going to say, well, why don't they? They need to get in the circles and create it. What did I just tell you about the language? What did I tell you about the pathology and years of conditioning? What did I tell you? Now, you sit over here. You sit over here next to me so that you get it, okay? And I'm going to hold your hand when I say this and I'm going to let it go and when I let you go, okay? Ask real questions other than you just good. Don't ask anything empty and meaningless. Don't ask anything with the expectation that he says, I'm all right. Okay, good. I checked it off my box. Don't do that. And here is one that I am guilty of. I am guilty, 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 guilty. Excuse me. Listen without trying to fix everything. If I had $1 for every time I thought I could fix somebody's problems, I would be rich right now. I would be rich. I would be on the world stage with Oprah right now, talking about how I created this system, this gateway to emotional intelligence, and how men in America and beyond are just thriving and happy in euphoria, and there are less wars and less, violence of all types of all. It just would be magical. It would truly be magical. But here's the thing, you can't fix everything. You can't fix everything. Your willingness to want to try it is great and it's enough. It's a good gesture. But when you don't have all of the tools yourself, you cannot fix somebody else. And if you are not inside the mind of the person and you don't really understand deeply the root of it, the center of it, the foundation, the basics of how they came to be it, you can't fix it for them. You can't fix it for them. And I talked about this in an episode as well, so y'all make sure y'all catch up. But I talked about this idea of wanting something for someone more than they want it themselves. And people, are probably like, oh, everybody should want to be successful. Everybody should want to make millions. Everybody should. Here's the thing, right? Everybody is somebody. Okay? Everybody is somebody. And everybody has their own path that they must follow. They are an individual. Your road to a million may be different than my road to a million, right? Because I'm me. I can sit here and do this thing all day long. Some people will be like, I couldn't sit in front of a camera and talk to myself. There are people that tell me, I don't know how you sit on live for hours and talk to people in the comment section. That would drive me crazy. We are different people and we experience life differently. And so you have to understand that that's a part of emotional intelligence too. So don't think men are the only ones that have issues or gaps in emotional intelligence. Everybody does. She, he, they, them, their, and everything above, beyond, and in between that. There's an emotional intelligence skills gap that is there, right? For a lot of us. Again, let me raise my hand. I had to do the work. I had to do the work. Boy, I tell you, if you go back to those earlier episodes where I talk about how once I started dating men, I was like a 19 or 20 when I started dating men. And I talk about the fact that for a long time, I just kept butting heads with men. I did. Y'all excuse my coffee, but my voice has been playing today, but we've been working. But I had so many issues with men because I was very defensive, very, very defensive. I was like, why am I very defensive with them? And I talked through a moment in one of the earlier episodes, season one, where I say that one of the men that I was dating happened to pull me aside because one of his friends was like, yo, Mike is really different with the women than he is with us men. Like he'll dap us up and say like what's up to us, but he's real friendly with the women. Like he laughs with them, he jokes with them, but with us, it's just like it's cold. And I am and my I think my partner at the time, he when he brought it to me, he was like, more than one of my friends said this. So when he heard it the first time, he didn't say anything. So more of his male friends, because he hung out with a little bit of everybody. But once he heard it a couple times, he was like, "Yeah, you are different with the men than you are with um the women." And I was like, I had no idea. I had no idea. But I had to dig. I really had to dig deep for that, and I didn't do it until years later when it started to show up in a lot of my dating habits. I was like, oh, there is something there. Anywho, y'all go back and check first season for a lot of that foundational stuff. But again, listen without trying to fix everything. Some of it you very well can impart wisdom and you may be able to create a safe space. And over time, you will build something, right? You will discover things together. You will problem solve together. You both will become better people for it, right? But it takes time. It really does take time. And the reason why is because safe spaces are not plentiful for men. They're not. They're not. They just are not. Make sure you create safe spaces that are judgment free, spaces where you're not giving awkward looks, where you're not giving more expectations, where you're not asserting dominance or trying to assert someone is less than or take away dominance, should I say. Make sure that in those spaces you're not doing that. Sometimes you can just be listening. Sometimes you can just be embracing. I talked about I keep referencing the old episodes. Y'all go back and listen to them. They some good nuggets. But I keep talking about this embrace. I keep talking about this embrace because it is so important. And that embrace is between this top lip here. Go on and put your finger right above your lip, right above that arch in your lip if you got one. If you barely got any lips, where your lips should start. Put your index finger up top of there, right under your nose, like you're about to scratch it. All right. That embrace is between here and somewhere underneath your bosom. So take your two hands, put them right in each other. So back to back, you can kind of see your thumb space through, looks like a field goal, and then pull it to your chest, right underneath the bosom. Okay, that is where the embrace is. So you should have both hands sitting directly on top of each other right now, fully open, ready to receive. That is the embrace. That cup that you feel is for the back of the head. There is something very reassuring about this embrace. It's a reason why babies love to be cupped that way. It's a reason why when kids hurt themselves at any age and they run into mother's arms or grandmother's arms, whoever's arm, it's a reason why the arms go out and that embrace happens. And they nestle right here, under the chin, right here, between the chin and the bosom. And then there's sometimes a kiss on the forehead or the top of the head. That is where that embrace needs to happen. And that is a sacred space for men. When you create a safe space for men where they are comfortable nestling in your bosom, you've won their heart. You have won that inner sanctum. You have won those deep, dark, excuse me, not often dark, sometimes dark in the hallway, but those very deeply feeling places in their heart that they've protected because they had to defend it from the world and those who would misuse it. They have let you in there. When they get to the space, when we get to a space where it is that comfortable, that means that you have created a safe space. I told this story and I'll tell it again. Every man that I am in relationship with or we are in situationship with, I try to make it very clear that that embrace is available because I know it all too well. There's nothing like somebody just grabbing me right here, that right there, and just pulling me in, and then I'm like, oh. And I say this all the time, but you can literally feel the weight lifting as he exhales, as I exhale. I'm like, it's such a safe space, right? And when you do that enough, you'll find that that evolves into this beautiful thing, right? Ladies, they, them, him, whoever, if you have something that is beautiful like this, some of you have already been sitting here at the top of this episode, like, listen, I already worked through that with my man. I did. I worked through that with my man. Some of y'all women are saying, you know what? When I was raising my son, I knew, and I sat my son down and I said, listen here, son. If I didn't teach you nothing, if your daddy didn't teach you nothing or whatever, this is how you need to go out into the world. And I'm going to do better. Some of you all have done the work. Some of you men, I'm proud of you for embracing your sons. Oh my God, I love when I see these father and son videos where the father is of a particular age and the adult son will be watching TV and just put his head right on his lap. They watching football and they just doing whatever they do. Head is just right there. Now, some of y'all take that the wrong way. Y'all need to grow up. That is a lack of emotional maturity, right? It really is. You know, to assume that there's something else there. If I had a son, right, I would assume that he and my daughter would exhibit the same, this openness and willingness to display their feelings. My daughter is about to be 23 years old, and she will crawl in my bed. She will crawl in my bed and just nestle right here, kind of like when she was a baby. That was listen. I was flat chested. I'm a little. I got a little something now, but when my daughter was a baby, for whatever reason, she didn't want to be on her mom, who had the things. Now my mom was different. That was like a waterbed. Now my mom back in the day, she had listen before she had the. Let me stop. My mom gonna probably watch this and be like, "Now listen, you ain't have to go there." Well, I did. You know what it was. But she would get comfortable with my mom. That was like a waterbed. I ain't even mad at her about that. But for whatever reason, my daughter would just get there and she would just go to sleep and get comfortable. My daughter's an adult. She'll still do it. She's about 5'7". If she even 5'7", I'm sorry. I'm sorry, daughter. If you are a little taller than that, you're just short. You and your mom, you're just short. And so my point is this: even at my daughter's age, she still comes and sits on my lap as an adult. I'm like, girl, if you don't get your big tail off of me. She has boys of her own now. She has two boys of her own. So I have two grandchildren. And my daughter will still come and sit on my lap, putting my legs to sleep. I'm like, young lady. She's like, what, Dad? I don't get to see you very often. I was like, that's right. Well, you might as well before my knees go out. You know what I'm saying? You might as well before my knees go out. But if I had a son, like I would, I'd be open to the same thing with my son, right? Whatever you need to make you feel good It has nothing to do with your gender. It has nothing to do with the expectations of who you are when you go out into the world. The world is always going to give you expectations. The world is always going to pull you in every direction and demand from you the things that even you don't possess. If you don't have it, the world is going to try to take it before you even get it, putting you in debt already. So I understand that. And if my son wanted to, listen, hey, come, hey, what's up, son? What's up? This extends to my grandchildren, right? I'm hoping that their father embraces them in the same way. I hope he does. I hope he provides a safe space for them. And I'm like, get off of me, man. Like, no, hug your sons, hug them. But again, where those safe spaces are lacking, right? Those of us that love the men around us and the men that we're with, we have to do a better job of bringing them into those safe spaces, making it comfortable for them to ask for the things that they need emotionally, making sure that when they have those moments of trying to figure it out, that we don't talk them out of it or talk over them or try to malign them in any way, right? To get what we want. We have to normalize these emotional conversations. We have to. We have to affirm that vulnerability is strength. I talked about that before. Vulnerability is not a weakness. It is not necessarily. It's that there's nothing wrong with being vulnerable. It's not necessarily one of those things that has to break you. Vulnerability is a key to something much bigger and much deeper if you allow it to be. It really is. Vulnerability is the key. It is the gateway to everything that you know, everything that you think you know, that you want and you desire. It is the gateway for you being able to actualize those things and communicate to, with, from, back and forth with somebody. What you do for yourself, what you do for yourself, you then are able to go and do for others. And so if you want somebody that is going to romance you, they need to have romance themselves. If you want somebody that's embracing, they need to have been they will need to have embraced themselves. You know what I'm saying? You can't give what you don't have is my point. And so we have to sometimes create those spaces because, well, that early childhood didn't make way for it. Normalize these conversations. Normalize somebody being, I'm frustrated. Well, talk to me about what that feels like. You might get some pushback. Listen, you might get some pushback. My last ex, he was the sweetest guy, probably the sweetest guy I have ever met. Chivalry, the nines, would do anything to make me happy, anything to see me smile. If I was having a bad day, he'd be like, no, I got to make that better for you. However, anytime I wanted to talk about his feelings, I mean, stormed off, hung up the phone a couple of times on me when we were dating long distance. Um, we would try to have deep conversations about the past. He would get angry, jumping up. And here's the thing, right? Sometimes the only way that it comes out looks like aggression, right? When it's really passion. And sometimes that's hard to decipher if you're not used to it. And you'll be like, oh my God, why is he so aggressive? Here's the thing, that's just the nature of what the outlet was for a lot of them. So I experienced him in a very, very different way and I was jarred. It can be very jarring. But it was more important to me to isolate that type of behavior to what he was feeling and wanting to convey versus what he was actually able to. And so for that reason, I said, that is for the situation. That is not for me. That behavior is for the situation. That is not for me. I just so happen to be here watching it. I just happened to be here watching it. Never got disrespectful to the point where he called me out my name or said anything or did anything like that. But his whole body was filled with emotion. And the best way he did it was jumping up. And sometimes it was like, fuck, and I could tell he wanted to express himself, but did not have the language. Did not have the language. I remember the breakthrough that we had. I remember the breakthrough. I remember the breakthrough. And that is where this bosom thing happened for me. That is where that bosom thing came to life, where I would just tell him, come, come, come lay in my bosom. It came from the very first breakthrough that we had when he didn't have the words, but I could tell because his shoulders, the look in his eyes, everything said, I need to be held. I need to be held. He didn't say it. And so, and he's a lot taller than me. And so I was just like, come here. I was like, come here. He's like, what? I said, come here. Come here. Get over here, boy. And he came over and I just really I grabbed the back of his head, I pulled it in, and at first he was trying to like pull away. And I think that is the result of that dapping each other up thing. And it's like, and even if you with your parents or grandparents, if they're, the men or whatever, it's like, all right, that's too much of that or whatever. I think it's a cause of how that distance is put between that form of affection. And so he didn't want to stay long, but I was like, nope, stay right there. Stay right there. And I believe I used to say 60 seconds. I said, 60 seconds. I said, that's how the serotonin, I used to say, yep, 60 seconds. I said, because that's how the serotonin releases. But that breakthrough that I had was him was because he needed the embrace. Everything about his body, his eyes, his everything said that he needed to be embraced. There's a small child in each one of us that when we are hurt for whatever reason, if you think about it, small children, you yell at them, they hear a loud noise, right? They don't know what it is. They don't know if it's danger. They don't know what it is, right? But they run into the arms and until they feel comfortable and they're ready to come back out. And a lot of times they realize that that noise didn't mean anything bad. It just startled them because it was new and it was different. Same way with being hurt. You get hurt, you run to your parents, you run to the person that nurtured you, right? And you go into that safe space and that embrace. There is a small child still in each one of us that needs that embrace. And you deserve to have that embrace. So normalize these emotional conversations and make sure that you affirm people. Make sure that you affirm people in the same breath. Affirm that vulnerability is a strength, it's a superpower. Vulnerability is how I get to know you deeply. Vulnerability is how we grow. Vulnerability is how you learn how to read the room. Okay? Before I read you. That is so important. And I would be remiss if I didn't say this. Encourage therapy without shaming. Encourage therapy without shaming. There's so much stigma, particularly in the Black community around therapy, right? Where therapy and religion kind of are like oil and water is right there when it's about therapy. I always tell people, yeah, Jesus can fix anything. The Lord can deliver. God can repair. However, he made therapy to supplement it, right? There are people right here with gifts to help you unlock the mind. And it is no mistake or coincidence that there are so many people that are involved in the practice of healing the mind and providing powerful tools for the mind to navigate, the world and the feelings and the things that happen. So encourage therapy without shaming. Oh, you don't need that. You just pray to God, talk to God about it. Here's the thing. Anytime somebody tells me to pray about it, anytime somebody says to pray about it, it makes me so upset because I've already done that. I've already done that. While I'm waiting on a prayer, I might need to go speak to somebody. Okay. And it's not the pastor that tells me that therapy is for people that sit on the couch and tell their business, and we don't do that. Uh-huh. Mm-hmm. Encourage therapy without shaming. Tell people it's okay. Be like, listen, there's somebody that knows much more than me. That's back to that point I told you about you can't fix everything. And I ain't even gonna try some of it. I know the extent to which I can help someone emotionally. That is why I'm here doing this podcast. That is why my book One Day at a Time is hitting shelves this month, right in time. It is the reason why I created a One Day at a Time workshop for everyone to use. I know the extent in which I have been empowered to do this thing, and I am doing it. And I am doing it to the fullest But when I reach a situation and when I reach a person and an interaction that I don't know about, if I can't figure it out in the moment, if it doesn't come to me in the moment, you might want to talk to somebody else. I have to tell people all the time, this is above me, okay? God Himself has appointed somebody in the form of a PhD, a MD, or something that is going to help you through this. And I'm more than happy to try to help you find that person, but that person is not sitting here. It is not. So encourage therapy without shaming. I always tell people about my stories in therapy and my first time and how nervous I was, and then I finally was like, you know what, this is ridiculous, you got to let it out, and whatever happens happens. And I'm so glad that I opened up and allowed the therapist to take me all the way back to my childhood, because that's the thing too, right? I didn't know that I was going to have to go back to my childhood, but it makes so much sense when she said, we're not starting there. Similar to what I say to people now that I think about it. Well, we're not starting there. Now, she didn't say it in the way that I did. She said, let's go back. And I was like, but what are we going back playing in there for? There's some stuff in there that I didn't want to talk about, that I tried to forget. But encourage therapy without shaming and celebrate emotional honesty, y'all. Whatever that may look like, you have to celebrate the honesty in it. Even if it's not what you wanted to hear, even if it's what you didn't expect, you gotta celebrate it. I appreciate you for telling me that, man. I'm glad that you shared that with me. I know that took a lot. I know that took a lot. Do y'all know there are power in words? There's power in words, and there are a lot of men that like when you speak life into them. Women, they, them, whoever, but particularly women, because I saw a video recently, right? There was a man, he looked like he was on the army line. I guess it was Family Day. And as he was sitting there at attention, his wife walked up to him and he stayed there. He stayed there like a statue. And she reached her arms up there and she coupled him just like this, both sides of his face. And she looked at him in his eyes. She smiled. And you just immediately saw him break. You know what I mean? And not in a bad way, but you just immediately saw him break from being this statuesque thing. And he leaned into her. He went right into that safe space. And everybody in the comments was like, I don't know what she said, but I know she was speaking life into him. Men, I am no different. I like to be affirmed. I like to be made feel like anything and everything is possible. Even the stuff that I don't know right now, but am trying to figure out, even the things that seem insurmountable, that I can do them all exceedingly and abundantly. But it's something about that. But you have to create the space, and you have to celebrate it when it happens. You have to celebrate and affirm it when it happens, because the next time that'll make it a little bit easier, you know? So I want to make sure that we understand this is not about forcing people to talk. This is not about forcing people to have a certain reaction. It's about making a safe space for them. It is truly about making a safe space for them. Okay? So, what I want to say to you all in closing, right? What I want to say in closing is men deserve softness. Men deserve that soft place to land. And if you love a man, a partner, a brother, a son, check on him. Not because he's weak, but because he's human. Because strength isn't silence, strength is connection. Strength is honesty. Strength is knowing you don't have to do it all by yourself. Awareness starts with us. Support starts with us. And healing becomes possible when we create spaces for men to show up as their full selves and not just as the strong parts. So, two things for you to think about as you move through the world and as you leave this conversation. What messages about masculinity have shaped how I express emotion today? I want you to think about it. Ask yourself that. The next thing, who is one man in my life I can check in on this week? Who is one man in my life I can check in on this week? All right. This matters. They matter. You matter. We all matter. We deserve. Okay. This has been the Michael Experience Podcast. I thank you all so much for the time today. And I will see you all on Friday for the next episode. And we will continue this mental health awareness journey. All right, go out there and love on yourself before you can love on somebody else. Peace and love, y'all. And I'll see you next time.